Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a gentle reminder from society that we can say whatever we want while others suffer. We will discuss all of this and more on today's episode of the Happiness Playbook. Hello and welcome to the Happiness Playbook. I am your host and play theory coach, Michael Anderson. I'll be commenting on this podcast about life through the paradigm of play theory, a mindset consisting of 4 principles: be present, let go and play, accept and build, and look outward. We've been practicing these principles here in our community for over 20 years, and I have been practicing them for 14 years, and I teach these principles every single day. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you find something useful in this podcast because remember, happiness is a skill and skills take practice. Today, we will be talking about the power of words. So I wanted to thank you in advance for using your word of mouth to spread our podcast. So please take a moment to like, subscribe, bless us with your presence even more. And thank you for sharing the podcast because we don't really market this with money. We market it with you for free. Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to like and subscribe and tell all of your friends about this podcast. Let's get back into our team huddle. Last week, we talked about let go and play, which means to understand that mistakes are opportunities to learn and it's time to leave your ego at the door. And how sometimes adults can be less willing or uncomfortable with play. And if you didn't see the episode, go take a look at it. It was a really fun episode. Had to do it from my room because I was having to let go and play because I wanted to make sure that I said everything that I wanted to say. We also had last week the challenge to find a moment when someone is trying to engage in play and make the decision to play. I hope that all went really well for you. This week, we're going to be talking about accept and build, which means to seek the positive and find ways to build upon others' offers, generate constructive energy, and lean in with enthusiasm. Which reminds me about our comments. The first comment that we have today is from a new listener, Greg Beaudry. I actually just met Greg the other day, and here's what he said. He said, "Hey, Michael. It was great meeting you yesterday and really enjoyed the conversation. Love that you're focusing on play, and it's ironic that we met on Halloween while our kids were all trick-or-treating. I got out my music gear that's been sitting in a box for about a year since we moved, and my kids had a blast pushing all the keys and turning the dials on the synthesizers. It can be hard to keep yourself from getting sucked into the cycle of doom scrolling, but engaging with your kids in play is definitely the best remedy." I love that. Yeah, we have to remember that doom scrolling leads somewhere, and that is doom. So we got to be careful about that. But yeah, engaging in play with your kids is a great way to get out of that cycle. And in fact, we could be really careful about when we start doom scrolling. We might we'll definitely get in the way of play with our kids. So I love that. Here's another comment from my favorite person in the world, Kiana Anderson, my wife. She said, "This episode is fire. It's so interesting how play evolves as we get older. I have so many examples of my kids asking me to play, and then I go in half-heartedly or begrudgingly. And then no one is having fun versus when I let go of my to-dos or the way I should act as a mom and just enter the world of play through my toddler's eyes. Love this." Yeah, that's great. That kind of goes to our discussion about being childlike versus childish. Very, very awesome comment. And my wife is one of the best people at engaging in play. She really sells herself short. She does this every single day, and she is a great mom. And we've got another mom, Sleepy Mom, 24, another returning listener. And this is what she said. "This is such a great reminder. I get so caught up in my to-do list in accomplishing things and productivity that I often forget to let go and play and to be present. Thank you for reminding me how valuable play is." Thank you so much. Play is valuable, and you're welcome. And thank you so much for commenting. If you want to leave a comment, there's a good chance that you will be featured because we featured every single comment this week. And of course, it'll bless others. So please take a moment to comment on either the YouTube channel or wherever you are listening to this podcast. And with that, let's get into the body of what we're talking about today. Well, it turns out that words might hurt us a little bit more than we might think. In fact, they might even hurt us more than sticks and stones do. I know we talked about sticks last week. That has its own power. Trust me, finding sticks and rocks outside, love that. But words have actual meaning and actual power. So we're going to be talking about that today. And if you don't believe me that words are powerful, here are a couple of examples of powerful words. Some of them are speeches, some of them are books. You might not agree with some of these examples, but they have power. You have to agree that all of them have had some kind of power or impact on others. For those of you listening today and not watching on YouTube, here's what I've got on my caption card. We've got the Gettysburg Address, Shakespeare, the Bible, Les Mis, the Declaration of Independence, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, We Will Fight on the Beaches by Winston Churchill, and Liberty or Death by Patrick Henry. So words are powerful. The things we say are powerful. Here are some other words that talk about how powerful words are. These are some quotes we've got for you today. This one's really fun. This one's from Mark Twain. It says, "Actions speak louder than words, but not nearly as often." Okay, so our actions, they speak louder as words, but louder than words, but our words are happening a lot more often. Okay, so I thought that was really interesting to think about. Kind of tickled my brain. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. That's Robin Williams for you. This quote is from Buddha. Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill. So let's take a second to talk about these quotes. These are very influential people, right? And they're talking about the power of words. I mean, think about it. Think about when you've watched a movie or you've read a book or you've had a delightful conversation with somebody. What made those situations, or what made you want to be in those situations? Or maybe what made you want to not be in those situations? It's the words that have power, right? You don't just get together with your friends and sit around and not talk. I guess, no, we kind of do that now, huh? So maybe that's a problem. Maybe that's for another episode. Why are we sitting on our phones, everybody? Come on. But today's podcast was inspired by this video. I saw this video by Pete Holmes. He's a comedian, actually. I would actually say parent advised. Some of his content can be a little bit dodgy, but he had this really powerful video that he came out with that is titled "Words Have Power." Let's take a look.
Words have power. If you don't believe it, date someone who calls you dummy. You know what I mean? Oh, there's sounds from a mammal. No, they're not. They're spells. We're casting spells on each other. I do this on stage as a stand-up sometimes. I point to someone in the front row, I go, "That's a great shirt. You made a great choice of that shirt." And you can see, even though they know I'm just kind of joking around or making a point, it works.
I really love what he says here. He says words have power, and if you don't believe him, then hang around someone that is constantly teasing you or calling you a dummy. And how powerful is that? Sometimes we surround ourselves with people that are kind of negative. And after a while, you might be thinking you might not even recognize this, but you might go home exhausted after that experience. In fact, we've had experiences like this before, even in our own building here. I actually run an improv team, and there was a show, I believe it was last year, where one of the last games of the show, the improvisers thought it'd be really funny to go into the crowd and to boo themselves off the stage. And we bring up this all the time. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but we've brought this up before, and it was this really kind of awkward moment that happened. Everyone in the audience was like, "Huh? Like, what just happened there?" Like, we had this great show, and then it ended kind of negative, and it was kind of weird. And then everyone jumped up back on stage and was like, "Yeah, come again next month," right? So it ended up being this kind of odd experience because it was inherently negative, right? And I'm not saying that we need to always be glorifying ourselves or anything like that. I'm just saying that negativity really matters. Harsh words can really leave an impact on somebody. And at the same time, positive words can have a great impact on others. I want to share another story. earlier this year, we were doing a summer camp, and I can't remember what the topic of the summer camp was. It was a blast, though. I think it probably was something around improv, but we had a good mix of people in this class. Everyone was really a delight to be around. And we had this one girl who was from France. She had traveled here to visit her family, and while she was in town, they said, well, what's a fun experience to do in town? So they went and did one of our summer camps. Her name is Capucine. And one day we were having a really fun time in this summer camp, and we started playing this game. It was called the gift giving exercise. And basically, to put this in simple terms, it's just a game where you create some kind of object, but it's a space object. It means you use your hands, right? So if I'm going to create a ball, I might do this, and this is my soccer ball, so I'm going to pass it around. So we did that, and what you're supposed to do is you say, here's this soccer ball. And then the next person who receives it, they're supposed to justify why it's the best gift ever. Oh, I'm so glad you got me this soccer ball because I've been wanting to play soccer my whole life, and I've just been waiting for a ball to show up, right? It could be anything silly like that. It didn't have to be any real serious reason. So we do this, we go around the circle, right? And then we adjust the exercise. We say, okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to give a genuine compliment to the person next to you. And all that this person is now allowed to do is to say thank you for receiving that compliment. So we went around the circle and we each gave each other a compliment. It was a really good feeling. And I said, guys, how did that feel? How did that feel to just get a compliment? And it was real genuine compliments. I made sure it wasn't just like, oh, some like, you look nice today. It was like, I've really appreciated the way you smile because it makes me feel better when I come into class. Those were the compliments we were getting in there. And I asked the group, how did this feel to you? And Capucine was the first to speak. And she said, because I come from France, sometimes people make fun of my accent. She had such a slight accent. You almost couldn't tell. But anyway, that's what she said. Some people make fun of my accent. And whenever I join in a summer camp, I get really nervous because I think someone's going to make fun of me for my accent. Here's someone coming all the way across the world who gets made fun of. But then she said, here, because of play theory, I have learned to see things in a new way. I've been with people who are not so harsh and mean, who've been so kind to me. I've not had a single person here say anything wrong about my accent. And then what happened next is, it almost brings me to tears just every time I think about it, is every single person in that circle, without being prompted, I didn't tell them to do this, they all went around and gave her a second compliment about how wonderful she was, how brave she was, how courageous she was. Imagine how she feels now. She's probably doing something else in France right now and getting into her school year or doing whatever over there. But she'll always remember that because the alternative was everyone else saying mean things about her. It's kind of like that Buddha quote, right? People will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill. And it's our job to be on the good side. And so this kind of gets into my next topic, which is sometimes there's imposters to play, right? It all comes back to play theory. It all comes back to play. It all comes back to accepting and building, right? And some of these imposters to play, and we think we're having a fun time, but in reality, whenever we do any of these things that I list, and I mean it, anytime we do any of these things, we are being negative and we are being destructive. We are being rejecting and destroying, not accepting and building. One of them is teasing, ignoring or ghosting somebody. Bullying. There's a difference between teasing and bullying, and one is that teasing, sometimes you're unintentionally doing harm, where bullying, you're intentionally doing harm. I feel like that's really the only difference. I think they have the same impact. So we have to be really careful with what we do. We always need to put a positive spin on things because we're all hurting, each and every one of us. How many of you feel like you've got all the friends in the world and that everyone is always taking care of you all the time? It's not how we all feel. I feel like many of us at times feel lonely. So we need to put a positive spin on things. Talking about a positive spin, there's this video that I've loved for a long time. It's called Validation. And I'm going to put the link in the description below. It's something that you should definitely take a look at. So let's see, I'm going to show you just a little bit of this clip. Take it away.
I'm here to get validated.
You are awesome.
Excuse me?
You have an amazing face. You've got powerful features, man. Anyone ever tell you that?
No.
And listen, you look a little down. And it may seem like sometimes people don't understand you. But someday, man, someday, people are gonna see you for what you really are.
You really think so?
Absolutely. You are great.
Need a validation, please?
You are great, ma'am. You have amazing cheekbones.
Really?
Sir, yes. We have a situation. Where?
Oh my gosh, ah, 6 months over.
What the hell's going on?
Yes, that is so sweet.
You've been through it. You know. You've had so much life experience that other people don't appreciate, but you know.
Bless you, dear.
They're not patronizing the shops. They're just coming to see him.
Oh, sir, you're in great shape. You work out?
Not for long.
I do actually, a bit. Yeah, thanks.
Young man, we are running a business here, not a social club.
That is a fantastic suit. It really flatters you.
You think so?
You guys work so hard. You are the backbone that keeps this place running.
But I always felt like no one really appreciated us.
Yeah, I mean, our jobs are so stressful, and it seems like most of the times people just don't see it.
No, what you do is so important.
You know, I bet the boss would love to meet you.
Isn't that video awesome? I love how he takes a moment with each individual person and he gives them a genuine compliment. When's the last time that you gave someone a genuine compliment? Really? Like, especially a family member. Think about like the people you live with in your house. What do your interactions usually look like? I want to share a little bit of my story on this. So my brother and I, we recently just talked to each other about our family dynamics, and we realized that this is my younger brother. So my older brother, who if he watches this isn't confused, but he's like, we didn't talk about that. But yeah, my younger brother and I, we had this conversation and we talked about our family dynamics, and we used to tease each other a lot growing up. And it was fun. Like we were having a good time, I thought, and we would say jokes. But then my brother brought this up. He said, do we talk to each other about our romance in life, about our jobs in life? Do we talk to each other about how we feel about certain things or what our interests are? And I realized us brothers, we don't really talk about that stuff because we have this history of teasing. Everything's not serious. And sometimes things need to be serious. I do like having lighthearted nature, and I think that can happen in all your conversations. But sometimes we need to be validating people in our own lives, right? So I want you to think about that. And in fact, that's going to be our play of the week. Our challenge this week, I want you to give a genuine compliment to somebody. And it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be this difficult situation, right? Like maybe there's someone that is a little bit easier for you to do this. But it might be a challenge too. You might be used to teasing everybody. So I'm going to give that to you as the play of the week. We still have a little bit more to talk about. I want to just once again say how important it is that we recognize that words are very, very powerful. They're so, so powerful. Everything that we do, everything that we say to others, it really has meaning. And and use those words for power. And I will say, you will find a lot of joy in lifting others, and people think you're so awkward. People think I am so awkward because I walk up to them and I say, "You look great today. Man, you're rocking it." And usually they kind of laugh because they are not ready for that. Like, that's weird. People don't say that to each other. But you know what? Those people are still my friends. They still talk to me. They walk up to me at shows and I check in with them and see how they're doing. So that's the play of the week. I want you to give a genuine compliment to somebody. Go ahead and leave your experience of how that turns out in the comments below or wherever you comment. And thank you so much for watching today. We really appreciate every single person. I don't care if it's 3 people. I don't care if it's 20 people. I don't care if it's 200 or 1,000. Every single one of you matters to me. And until next week, remember that happiness is a skill and skills require practice. We'll see you all here next week on the Happiness Playbook.